Hello guys, and welcome back to another super efficient build guide. Now today we're going to be looking at rotors. Now today's factory will construct 10 rotors per minute and thus will include underclocking. Now the reason we're creating 10 rotors is because in the next video we shall be creating stators and motors, and we need equal inputs of rotors to stators. So without further ado, if you do find this video helpful, please drop a thumbs up, and if you want to see more factory build guides, then check out our super efficient build guide playlist above, and don't forget to subscribe. Now to start this build we shall be working on an 8x13 grid. Now this can be built more compact, however for the ease of this build everything is spaced out a little and we shall be using the manifold system. Now if you don't know how to do it, do check out the video that I've published this week. The link I'll place above right now. Now do note I have also placed various foundations in white paint. Now this is to point out where conveyor lines will use an elevator to go above or below a constructor or foundation. Now this is most important in the first column on the 7th row, which then transports the items to the 10th row, which we'll be covering later. Now please do note for this rotor build guide you will need a total of 52 iron plates along with 12 rotors, 190 cables, 32 wire, 96 iron plates and 68 iron rods. Although do note this does not include things like the conveyors that you will be using, the elevators, the power poles and cables, and the foundations. So for part 1 we're going to be covering smelters. Now for this factory we will require a total input of 112.5 iron ore per minute. Now as we're not building load balancers, what we're going to be doing instead, rather than calculating that 112.5 iron ore per minute, we shall be running a fully saturated Mark II conveyor line, so that will carry a total of 120 iron ore per minute for us instead. So once you have your grid built, the first thing you will want to do is place 4 splitters, one on each of the alternate columns, starting with the second column running along the first row. Now these splitters should be placed directly in the center of the foundation, flowing from left to right. Then, 2 spaces in front of the outputs, we shall place smelters, and from there we shall place a merger 2 places in front of these smelters again, flowing from left to right. Now at this point, you will want to connect the smelters to the manifold using elevators. We're going to be doing this for all manifolds, but I probably won't mention it every time in this video. Also do make sure that the manifold is running Mark II conveyors, as we're still going to be running 112.5 iron ingots per minute. We shall now add the clock speeds to the smelters. Now the first 3 smelters will be running iron ingots at 100% clock speed, and the 4th smelter shall be running at 75% clock speed. Now part 2 comprises of iron rods constructor lines. Now for this we shall need another manifold with splitters running parallel to the current one. Now to get the right placement of the splitters manifold line, we shall first place the constructors. So, starting from the first column, we shall place 7 constructors along the front edge of the 5th row, and at this point we shall place our splitter manifold. Now we will need to place the splitters flowing to the left, 2 places behind each of the constructors. Now at this point we shall be placing 2 merger lines. One will go off into screws and one will go off for the iron rods that will be used in the assemblers. So in front of the first 3 constructors you will need mergers. The first merger will be placed facing a forward direction, which will then use an elevator to pass these iron rods along to the endpoint either above or below the constructor line that will be placed in front, and the following 2 mergers to the right of this will be flowing from right to left, feeding this line also. We shall then place a splitter in front of the 4th constructor. Now one of these splitters outputs will be heading to the left to join the iron rods, and next we're going to place a merger directly next to this splitter on the right. Now this will start the second manifold flowing to the right. Now for this part, we will connect the other 2 lines of this particular splitter into this merger. So now all the splitter outputs should be in use. 5 will be going to the left and 10 iron rods per minute flowing to the right. Now from here we shall place mergers in front of the last 3 constructors. Now the first 2 of these mergers will be flowing to the right, and the final merger will be flowing straight ahead. This shall have you running a total of 50 iron rods to the left of this section and 62.5 rods per minute heading to the right. Now with that done, connect the manifolds using elevators and make sure you're running the Mark II or greater conveyor for the second part of the manifold flowing to the right. Moving on to part 3, we will be covering screws. Now once again we will be building another manifold splitting to 7 constructors exactly like the previous step. So to start off, place 7 constructors along the front edge of the 8th row starting from the first column. Once done, set up the splitter manifold line again 2 places away from the constructors. We shall now add a merger manifold on the other side. Again, place these 2 places away from the constructors, and do note that the very first merger in the first column will flow forwards and the rest should flow from right to left. Now at this point we shall be doing the clock speed. The first 6 conveyors will be running at 100% clock speed and the final constructor running at 25% underclock. Now for part 4 we will be covering the assemblers, which will be creating the rotors. Now at this point we will need to place the 3 assemblers on the edge of the 11th row, followed by a double stacked manifold splitter line. Now the first splitter line should be placed 3 stacks high, 2 places from the assemblers, and be in front of the alternate inputs. So we're going to place it in the first input on each of the assemblers. Now the second splitter manifold should be above the previous manifold and start in front of the second assembler input and alternate thereafter. So from here we will need to connect the iron rods, which are running underneath or over the screw constructors, and connect it to the first splitter manifold. Once done, we shall do the same for screws on the second manifold running above this one. Do note this manifold line will need to be using the Mark III conveyor or greater, as you will be transporting 250 screws per minute along this line. Now once done, we shall add a final merging manifold, the other side of the assemblers, to bring all of the rotors to one place. Currently I'm placing them all in a container, however in the next video these will be running onto the motor factory. Now our last thing to do, other than power the circuits, is to set the clock speed for the rotors. Now the first assembler will be running at 50% clock speed, and the final 2 shall be running at 100% clock speed. So there you are guys, a rotor factory running at 10 rotors per minute, which will go on to create motors at 100% clock speed in the next layout guide. Now, if you did find this video helpful, then please do drop a thumbs up, and if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and as always, until next time, ciao for now.